Hi everyone, and thanks for joining today. My name is John Smith. I'll be your presenter. Welcome to this Controller's Corner webinar on how to use the Dynamics Analysis Cubes library as the central component of your BI platform. I'm very pleased to be doing this webinar today because I've been working with cubes for the last 20 years, and certainly all the time I've worked in GP since version 6. We've been installing and configuring cubes for clients, and unfortunately it seems like it's one of those things you get to sort of near the end or after a little while after doing an ERP installation, and honestly it's probably one of the most valuable. So I hope you get some value out of today's webinar. We will try to dive into the cubes a little bit and show you around a little bit about how they work. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and get started. A few housekeeping items just before we go to the content. The webinar is being recorded. As you know, all of the Controller's Corner webinar series videos are posted on crgroup.com. The link is there. During the webinar, please feel free to go ahead and submit your questions, and of course, this will count for a professional development hour, so watch out for an email confirming that. In terms of agenda, I want to talk a little bit today just about some common challenges. What is BI? What are cubes? How do they fit into the other Dynamics GP reporting tools? And that's often one that confuses clients. So we'll spend a bit of time on that. And then, as I said, we'll do a brief demonstration. And I promise to end this on or before the 30-minute mark. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. Two questions to start. What's business intelligence, and what does it mean for Dynamics GP? So I want to talk a little bit about this right out of the gate, just to put some context around cubes. First of all, business intelligence, as we all know, is probably more aligned with trying to get the right information to the right people at the right time so they can make the right decision. Often we hear this when we go in and start looking at replacing ERP systems as part of our ERP practice, that, there's not one version of the truth in the organization. The organization is data rich and information poor. And so BI is about trying to provide a central platform so that everybody's looking at the same data, everybody's into the meeting, understanding the same numbers, so to speak. It's also about an enterprise-wide environment that supports reporting, analysis, and decision-making. And it's important, I think, with cubes that, we think about cubes as analysis tools, and they have tremendous value there. We're going to talk more about that as we go through this demonstration today. It's also the backbone of corporate analysis and reporting. So big organizations and small organizations that have invested in this type of business intelligence platform, they know it just becomes it's so important in their organization. Indeed, it is the backbone for all of the analysis and reporting activities that they do. It's comprehensive in GP 2016, and comprehensive meaning that there's multiple parts that come together to provide the platform. And it's important to know that the platform continues to grow. Some of you may be aware that Microsoft probably a couple of years ago released a very powerful BI tool called Power BI. With GP 2018, we understand there's going to be content packs on Power BI that ship with the product. So you'll see, again, BI taking more and more prominence inside the Microsoft product line, and certainly within Dynamics GP. So the BI promise, of course, is that if we provide the right information to the right people at the right time, companies can make better decisions faster. And with business intelligence, you can transform data into knowledge, knowledge into action, and action into success. It really, when you start breaking it down, starts to focus in around what we call multidimensional analysis. And what we mean by that is there's different angles and there's different pieces of information. When we look at something like, for instance, sales, we can slice it and dice it from multiple dimensions: a customer dimension, a product dimension, a sales territory or salesperson dimension. All these different dimensions to help us understand how we're doing. And so the cube actually becomes sort of a data model for multidimensional analysis. And when we talk about cubes, we're always talking about multidimensional data cubes. So it gives us all these different options for analyzing data. The cube is really something that we can think of as made for business users. It's like an analysis tool. And what you'll love about it is that it's instant gratification in that, you can slice and dice the data, you can drill down and drill into it, you can look at it and look through it and create analysis views on the fly. You can change them on the fly. You can save them and they'll, automatically refresh in popular business intelligence tools, even using Excel. Some people use them to create repeatable reports. Some people use them to build sort of high-end graphical presentations. The important part of it is it's the same data. It's consistent and objective. It links into your ERP. It pulls out the data. It ties out to the data in your system. And, from a traditional sort of financial analyst or financial reporting perspective, we like the fact that these cubes can be exposed in Excel, but they're also used in other BI applications, and of course Power BI is one of them. So if we think about cubes and we think about Dynamics GP, we got to sort of understand in this BI architecture that GP has, where do the cubes fit? And sometimes when we do this, it can be a little bit confusing when we look at all the different reporting options that are available in Dynamics GP. One angle to look at, where things fit is to understand the stakeholder view. And so here we think about, on the bottom left corner, controller accounting, we think about shareholders and investors, and we think about the CFO and the executive team. And within Dynamics GP, we've got things like Smart List and Excel reports, and those are great for controller and accounting. There's the report writer or the out-of-the-box GP reports, which again are really aligned to sort of the accounting group. We've got the Excel report builder and Smart List builder. Again, a little more advanced than just plain Smart List, lets us define our own views. Again, we're sort of getting up the value chain with those. Dynamics GP ships with the SQL reporting services reports, and those add tremendous value to the product because they're web-enabled. Anybody with security access can get to them through their browser. They can be scheduled and pushed out to users. So they're important, and they sort of go beyond the GL, which again is an important part of the SQL reporting services reports. We've, of course, got Management Reporter, which is a fabulous financial reporting tool for financial statements, and I'm sure that most of you using Dynamics GP are using Management Reporter. It's really well done. It allows us to create and publish reports, and again, share those reports inside the organization for people that need them to understand how the organization is doing. Analysis cubes we position just a little bit higher than that because analysis cubes, first of all, reach across the entire ERP. They're not focused just on financial. The cubes are there for all the modules, for all the main modules. And I think one of the important parts about it is that it provides an easy way to understand and analyze the data. Importantly, the cubes, most people aren't understanding this, the cubes are an excellent data source for creating and publishing dashboards in Power BI. In fact, they're one of the best data sources. There's analysis services cubes. If you look into Power BI, you'll see right away when you go in and connect to the data that you can connect to analysis cubes. So the cubes play a really important role in this whole Dynamics GP BI platform. When we think about having the right reporting tool or the right analysis tool, there's a few factors that we look at here, right? So, if we kind of go across the columns from left to right, we've got a continuum here. And sort of on the left side, we say, okay, well, if we look at the data sources, we want to understand where these tools fit between sort of, hey, a single data source or a single module to multiple data sources and potentially multiple applications that could mean. And right away, the cubes are right at the top of the list if you've got multiple data sources. One of the things that is available with the cubes is that they're built with a data warehouse, and that data warehouse allows us to combine data from other business applications into the view inside the cube. So, if we think about Report Writer or Smart List, they're a single data source. They only work on GP. If we think about cubes, we can combine with multiple data sources. When we look at whether they're real time or there's a bit of a lag, well, that's one of the, not a huge drawback, but a slight drawback with the cubes. There is a bit of lag time. Cubes are data models that sit on SQL, that sit inside SQL in analysis services. and basically they get scheduled for updates. So sometimes I used to explain to people that, I think of cubes like a digital picture of sales data, for instance, or GL data, or purchasing data, or inventory data. If you think about that, it's like a snapshot at a point in time. So what happens is the cubes get scheduled, and depending on the size of the data set that the cube encompasses, that will determine what kind of refresh rate you can have. We've got clients who refresh their cubes every 15 minutes. We've got clients that do it every hour. We've got clients that do it every night. So there can be a slight lag time there. Whether they're rigid or flexible, well, the cubes are going to win here on the flexible side because there's a lot you can do with them. They're not rigid in structure. Again, they allow you to manipulate views of data the way you want and in a way you want to see them. Are they sort of traditional reports or more ad hoc? Cubes are going to fall more on the ad hoc side. You can certainly create repeating views of data, and they'll look and feel and smell like a report. That's fine. But the big thing with cubes is that, again, when you see it, you're going to be able to drag and drop and sort of play with the data in a way you want to see it. When we look at the security angle, we've sort of got GP security all the way down to sort of standalone security, meaning security within SQL, security within analysis services. So the cubes do not rely on GP security. If we were going to publish and share cubes, one of the things we can do is set the security inside analysis services itself. So we could have one cube that's potentially shared by many people, each with different security accesses. And that security, again, is defined inside analysis services. And, again, I think you're within the existing infrastructure, or do you need additional infrastructure? Well, we put the cubes out on additional infrastructure because you do need to have, a licensed version of SQL that will allow you to, run analysis services cubes within it. So it's an important part just to consider there. Most of our clients actually have the licensing on SQL to run these cubes. So it's just a little bit about where the cubes fit inside the Dynamics GP BI hierarchy. Now, when we talk about the specific cube library for Dynamics GP, it's important to really understand this. This analysis cubes library ships with the product. The cubes that are included are the financial GL cube. There's an analytical accounting cube. For those of you out there who are using analytical accounting, you'll get tremendous value out of that cube because one of the things with analytical accounting is that it's just nice to be able to take those analytical accounting dimensions and slice and dice them however you want in a drag and drop scenario. There's a sales cube. We'll show you that in the demonstration today here in just a moment and what that looks like. There are cubes for AR and AP. Some people ask me what's the value in the AR and AP cubes. One of the things we've seen with those where they provide a lot of value, just a simple aging, but the cubes can encompass multiple companies. So let's say you're set up with a multi-company scenario and you want to see a consolidated payables aging across all the companies. The cubes are a great way to do that, or even for receivables, again, a great way to do that. There's a purchasing cube as well, and there's also an inventory cube. Now, one of the cubes that's missing in this cube library is project accounting, and it's not a cube that ships in the Dynamics GP cube library. CRG has developed a great project accounting cube that's used by lots of clients. So if you're in the project accounting world, we have one that you can extend into your cube library. It's important to note CRG actually developed the original cubes for GP many, many years ago. We had a product called Quick Cubes, and before GP was purchased by Microsoft, that product, I think in the late 90s, actually shipped as part of the GP install. Since then, of course, Microsoft's gone and developed their own cube library, and that's what we're seeing, and that's what we're using now. But CRG's got a long history of developing cubes, and the project accounting cube is a real good one if you're using project. So some of the important features about cubes. I mentioned earlier that there's a data warehouse that's used, and I didn't put a picture in here of how the data flows. I didn't want to get too technical in this short presentation today, except what I'll tell you is that to ease the pressure on the database, what happens is when the cube develops, it basically pulls the required data out of GP and it pushes it into a data warehouse. And in the data warehouse, we aggregate the data, and then the cube is developed off of that data warehouse. Now, the data warehouse actually has a lot of value. Because the data warehouse is there, it means we could read data from other business systems into that data warehouse. And that would allow us to serve up a cube view that may have GP data, and it may have data from other systems included in it as well, if there's a link to them or there's a reason to have them there. So for instance, say you had a whole commissioning system for sales commissions, and you're doing sales data out of GP, and you've got the salesperson noted on the SOP invoice. You could potentially connect a commission application through the data warehouse, so that when you could look at sales, you can combine it with all the detailed commissions that you're paying salespeople. One example. The other advantage of the cubes is it has the ability to report on all of the ERP data. And what I mean by that is even within GP, and you'll see this again in the demonstration, there's tremendous value sometimes in being able to structure the data using user-defined fields, certain fields on Windows. They may not be available in some of the smart lists and some of the reports, but we can bring them into the cube if it helps to structure the data in a way to analyze it. Things like unlimited budget IDs. There is actually inside GP a dimension selector where you can reduce or increase the number of dimensions that are published within the cube, so that's available. And again, the cube can be scheduled for recurring updates once an hour, daily, however often you like, and again, depending on just the data set. So a couple of quick views here, and then we'll actually log in and take a look at it and how it works. Here's an example, one example. We could do a P&L. So this is a cube view of a P&L, and we might have business classes that we use to, filter on to understand our data. Another view would be, let's look at our accounts receivable and cash and put some current asset graph at the top and automatically have this refresh whenever the cube refreshes. Another one is just profit margin by project by customer. So again, this one would come from our project accounting cube, and something like accounts receivable, aging by customer by invoice. I developed these in Excel, and you're going to see here in a second, we'll do one from scratch. They're really easy to do. So here's one that looks at project accounting timesheets by hour and by project. So you could, filter on an employee, filter on a month, and say, okay, where did they spend their time, and quickly see the utilization rate by employee. So with that, let's go ahead and just navigate over into our demo environment and actually take a look at how this looks live. So I'm first going to just show you this. I'm going to open up Excel, and what I want to show you is that it's really easy, first of all, to connect to a cube. Once you set up the cubes, you'd go through with, your consulting partner, whoever set it up. You're going to look at how you connect to the cube. And once you've made your original connections, inside Excel, when you go to data and you go to existing connections, you're actually going to see these cubes sitting there. So let's say I want to do an analysis view in sales. I'll just go connect to the sales cube and open it up. And when I go in and open this up, what I'm going to see is that the cube presents itself like a pivot table. On the right-hand side of the screen, you've got the various values, the things we can look at, okay? And you've also got dimensions of information. We've got a company dimension, we've got a customer dimension, we've got a product dimension for items, a date dimension, some pending orders, sales detail. So all of these make up the dimensions that are available to slice and dice sales information. This is what an end user sees of a cube. That data model, again, is being refreshed every 15 minutes, every hour, or every night. So if you want to think about it, it's like maybe you use smart lists today and you do a big data dump and then you run a pivot on it. That whole part is taken care of by a cube. So let's go take a look at this. Let's say I want to look into some sales details, and I want to look at some extended costs, let's say extended price, profitability, and quantity sold. So right away, I'm just seeing these appear at the top of the screen. Of course, I want to put the price or the sales amount first. So you can see here right away, the cube has already calculated profit. And that's one of the values of the cube. When you bring all that data into the data warehouse, We can run business rules on it as we create the cube. We can do calculations and aggregations, create hierarchies, combine the data in a way to make it easy to report. And this is a good example because as that cube is calculating, it's actually calculating profit. I don't have to do A minus B. It's already there. So let's say I've got that's the view I want to see, and then I want to look at it across a few dimensions. The first dimension I might want to look at, let's say I want to look at it by customer. And I want to look at it maybe by sales territory. So if I click on it like that, it breaks down my sales and cost and profitability by territory. If I say, okay, and I can look into these territories, you can drill down, as you can see, and you can see a salesperson and a sales manager and salesperson. So there's an example of a hierarchy that went territory, sales manager, salesperson. If I say, I don't want to look at sales territory, I just take it and throw it away. And you sort of see what I mean by this living in the world of instant gratification, because I can come right back to it now and say, I'm going to go to that customer dimension. I'm going to go into more fields, and I want to drop the customer name in there. And so now I've got my customer name, and maybe I want to see which customer is most profitable. So I can go over here and sort this and sort it largest to smallest, okay? And I can see right away that in this view of data, Plaza 1 was the most profitable customer. When I start looking at it, you think, well, hey, I want to see this for a specific date. So I'm going to go down to my date area here, and I'm just going to pull in the year, and I'm going to make that a filter in this. So I've got my filter in there. Go open it up on 2017, and now I'm looking at 2017 data, and it's actually Contoso now who's most profitable just by, about $1,000. You know Excel, of course, and some of the values that you have here inside Excel. You could go over to the design layer, and you could quickly, clean this up, put a nice presentation on it, make it a nice view. If this was a report we wanted to come back to again and again and again, I could right-click on this, and I'd go into my pivot table options, and there's a nice little option here under data that says refresh the data when opening the file. So now what happens is that cube updates every 15 minutes, every hour, every night, whatever the frequency is going to be. Tomorrow when I come in and open up this Excel sheet, it'll blink at me for like a half a second, and the data will be automatically updated. I'm going to go ahead and just rename this and call it customer profit. And let's do that. We'll put it in there as customer profit, and we'll save that. So this is a view that in this workbook is going to be here. Now, suppose I want to change the view because I want to play with the data a bit. I'm actually just going to take this, and I love this about Excel and cubes, just make a quick copy of it. I'm going to come into this version of it, and I'm going to get rid of some of these fields. I want to look at just extended price. And one of the things that you can do here that's very interesting, and one of the things I like inside the Dynamics cubes, is they have this great dimension called periodicity. And I'm going to show you how that works. I think it's down here somewhere at the bottom. There we go. So I'm going to take periodicity for the sales by customer, and I'm going to move it up to the columns here. And look what it does. It pre-calculates, current period to date, previous year to date, the percentage change versus the previous year. It's got all of these columns built into it, which is really great. And that periodicity concept is there inside all of the Dynamics cubes. So just one of the great features that's there. Let's sort that largest to smallest on sales. One of the other things that's really nice about these cubes is that, and I'll go back and show my field list here, is that you can nest items. So we're looking right now at a customer view. Let's say we want to see customer, but we want to take a look at what they bought. In that case, I can look at the customer by item view. And I'm going to go into my items here. I'm just going to pick item description, and I'm going to put it right underneath customer here on row. And what you'll see it do is blow out now the customer view by item that they purchased. And again, if I want to look at maybe the most value, highest value item, I can go within that view and again sort it largest to smallest. And now I've got customer by item. So, I'll go ahead and rename that, and we'll call this one customer by item. And you're starting to see here that I've got this, workbook I'm building up with all my core data in it. It's just going to refresh every time I open this thing. For instance, another one we've done before, which we've looked at, just to swing this a different way. Suppose I'm a software company and I'm always concerned about bookings and revenue. And if you're in the software business, this is one of the key things you look at. And of course, bookings are like the total value of the deal, and revenue takes account of all our gap stuff and deferred revenue and stuff. Well, here what we did in this view, and this is Dynamics GP data all the time that I'm showing, we could do this for a software company. We could say, okay, what's your software support services, et cetera, for both bookings and revenue? And how we did this is we actually roll up the item on the item master in GP. We use the user-defined fields to put a product structure around it, okay? So in that way, when you think about your item master, if you go to the item master in Dynamics GP and you go to user categories, you'll see that you can add up to 6. So we put a product structure around every item. We said is it software, support, services, or other. And then that way, when we create the cube, we can drill down that way. We can group it that way to see it. Say a financial cube, for instance, another one that's interesting to look at. We go in here and let's look at saying, hey, maybe we want to create a statements and accounts dimension that's here. And in our statements and accounts dimension, we want to look at, for a specific year, we could say, let's take a look at some data. And I'll just go up here. Let's get an originating amount in there and get rid of that. So when I open up my profit and loss, what I can see is I've got a revenue group. I've got an expense group. This expense group, when I open it up, drills down to account categories. When I go into the account categories, I can go to subcategories, right? So it really is allowing me to just play with the data in a way I want. I could quickly create a P&L view here, and, I could drill down on this and say, I only want to look at P&L. So, I now drill down on it. And of course, I could go in and rearrange that revenue should, sit at the top, and I'll go ahead and move revenue up to the beginning and start to create a P&L view there that has revenue, COGS, expenses. We can, of course, create a net income that calculates and do all of those things. We can put dates in it. We can put budgets in it. So you sort of see the value of these is that it's allowing us to just create views of data the way we want to see it. One of the key values of the cubes when we've used them before is they're also good at pointing out where we have dirty data or bad data, because instantly it comes up as a blank or an unknown and you can go back and fix it. And as I mentioned before, the other key value is that they're an excellent data source for Power BI. So let's say you've invested some time developing these cubes, you've got to know the data, you've played with it, you're ready now to start sharing this information inside the organization. Well, that cube can become a data source that would help you create something like this. Here's a view that may be based on a sales cube out of Dynamics GP that allows us to look at, performance in a visual way. And again, it's just, instead of Excel, I'm using Power BI for that. So you've got like a team scorecard here. You could look at an industry analysis. You could look at an executive scorecard. So I guess my conclusion here to wrap this up in 30 minutes would be these cubes are super important. They're one of the most important foundational layers inside our business intelligence platform that is provided in Dynamics GP. They certainly add tremendous value whenever we put them inside an organization. I know from using them that once you've used cubes, you'll want them for the rest of your career, just because they're so powerful and so useful to us in finance. So questions, the time it takes to develop and configure these cubes, and that's really going to depend on the data source and what you're trying to get out of them. I do want to say that out of the box, the cubes do require some configuration, and we've seen configuration in terms of our level of effort as a partner take between 2 days to 5 days for sort of a standard cube, and it can take longer than that the more intense and specific it gets. If we're trying to configure the cubes but also integrate other business systems, then it is a bigger project. Out of the box, when you first install them, they require sort of a guided walkthrough, because at first glance, they throw out a lot of different fields at the end user, and some of those fields you may not be using in Dynamics GP, so you're going to want to hide them. So there is a configuration exercise here. They are not just simply out of the box, and the value in them is really structuring the data around your business and around your business set. So that's really where we provide tremendous value with these cubes. You want a partner that's done it before. Certainly CRG has, and we've got 20 years of experience in this part. So I'll leave you with that. Other, solutions we have just to be aware of: Changer, Reformatter, Analytical Accounting Tools, and Company Combiner are all tools that work specifically with Dynamics GP. If you're interested in those, certainly take a look at our website. And of course, MPerform is our employee performance management tool that we sell outside GP, but it's certainly integrated with Dynamics GP as well. So with that, I'll thank you for your time today. And again, there's more of these Controllers Corner sessions coming up. You can see the schedule at crgroup.com/Controllers Corner. Thanks for joining us and have a great day. Bye-bye, everyone.